Not even close, just leave it alone. I'm Michael Jordan, I play for the team I own.
Music make you lose control. Music make you lose control.
Welcome back to Dopamine. Once again, I'm your host, Tawan, a.k.a. Holotip. We have Romero Russell here. If you are just joining us, make sure that you go back to the first part because that was just some wonderful information. And I actually cut off a little bit because I wanted to have a little bit of a teaser. So you were talking about that you jump rope for an hour. We're going to plug that again because that is a wonderful accomplishment.
Okay.
You jump rope for an hour on the segment 4 show.
Yeah.
And then during that time, that's when you wanted to go ahead and embrace your past, and that led you to talking to inmates as motivational speaking.
Yes.
And so that's where we left off a little bit, where you actually went to the prison. So how was that? Please share.
So after Esteban, who is the co-host of Daytime at 9, he comes to me and he says, yeah, we're going to go to this prison. And I'm like, I'm okay. Because he told me I'm supposed to bring a celebrity, but they'll see through their story.
Okay.
I want you to come. I'm like, okay. Oh, I forgot to tell you.
Yeah.
Going back, before we went to the prison, he says, you got to write a letter to the warden because they know who I am. They don't know your story.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, man, I got to tell the story again. So, yeah, because it's funny because when you start to tell your story, God will make it so everybody hears it.
Yep.
Even when you don't want to talk about it. So I'm like, man. So I write a letter to the warden, and it was long. And so the response was, wow, can't wait to meet you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The inmates are going to love hearing your story.
Definitely.
So the prison was so we lived in San Antonio, and the prison it was a good little drive, tourist unit. So when we're driving up there, I'm like, he's like, it's cool, man. We gonna walk in, we walking out. He says, it's good. We celebrities. It's gonna be all right. I'm like, okay. He says, calm down. It's cool. So we get there, right? Big place. We get there. One of the guards greets us. Hey, what's up? How y'all doing? Which was odd to me because I wasn't used to, guards being all friendly.
The other side, yeah.
On the other side. So we go through the metal detectors. The assistant warden comes out. She greets Esteban, gives him a hug. She sees me. She gives me a hug and says, oh, my God, I can't wait for them to meet you. I'm like, I ain't nobody. I'm like, who am I? So we get there, and they all had their jumpsuits on. And it kind of took me back. Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah, I had some anxiety.
Okay.
Because these were big brothers.
Yeah.
Latinos, my brothers, white folks, these were big cats.
Just looking at you like,
just thinking like, who the hell, who is this dude? So Esteban speaks. It's about 800 inmates. So he speaks first, and they all like, yeah, because they get to see his show.
Okay.
As they're part of the entertainment.
Yeah.
So he says, I got a treat for you. I'm going to have Romero speak, blah, blah, blah. And they looking like, who is this dude?
Yeah.
So I get up, and I speak, and I say, hey, how y'all doing? From Oakland, California, this, that, and the third. I went to San Francisco State. I used to work in the laboratory at Stanford. They're like,
why are you here?
Who is this? I used to train NBA wives. They're like, who? And then the whole atmosphere kind of changed because I said, I wasn't in general population. I didn't have this. I was locked up in a 9x6 cell.
They're probably like,
Yeah, for 23 out of 24 hours. Woo. We only came out one hour a day for lunch or for dinner or whatever it was. And the whole room got quiet.
I'm sure.
Yeah, so I told my story. And I spoke for about an hour and 30 minutes or so, question and answer. And after it was done, they got up and they were like, oh, my God. And about 5 brothers, I kid you not, they surrounded me. And I'm like, uh-oh, it's about to go down. I'm like, oh, here we go. This is how I'm going out. And they embraced me. They hugged me. And this one dude had a tear in his eye. And I kid you not, he said, man, that was the realest story I ever heard. He said, because you gave us hope. What's that woman's name who got you off?
Oh, yes.
Because there's a woman who, going back. So when I'm in San Quentin, I got a letter from a woman named Denise Kendall.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna just put her name out there because I've never seen her.
Mm-hmm.
I've still never seen her. I don't know what she looks like,
Mm-hmm.
but she worked for the appellate courts.
Okay.
You know, the appeals courts to get to look at cases that have been wrongfully
Yeah.
whatever, some kind of error. And the letter states, I read about your case. You should have never went. I'm gonna get you off.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm reading it. And I'm looking at it like this is some bull.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, looked
Like,
at my
I've heard that
celly.
before, like-
I'm like, what should I do? And he's like, man, look around, man. You ain't got nothing else to do. I kid you not. The cell was so small, you can do this.
Seriously.
It was like this.
You said 23 out of 24 hours of the day
Yeah.
you were in there?
Yeah, you got to program your mind.
Yeah, you do. You
Yeah.
can go crazy. Like, seriously.
can.
That's just too long.
Yeah.
And for them, not to get, all the political and everything, but for them to expect you to have those conditions and to go back out into society and just be functioning and as if nothing happened. Like,
Because they really don't rehabilitate you.
no, it's just completely
It's like an
punishment.
extended timeout. You go
Yeah.
sit in the corner.
Yeah. And that's the only thing. And I know, they're probably like, okay, but it's the truth though. Like you have to, if you expect them to be a productive member of society, you have to make sure that you give them the tools to go out there and do that.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure you got the standing ovation from them because they're like, okay, it's the hope that they needed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I knew at the time I was telling the story, it wasn't about me.
Yeah.
It was all God. I was trying to give it back. I didn't want any recognition. I really didn't want to talk about the story. But if it wasn't for my wife.
Yeah.
And her mentorship and her love and the kids' love to get me to tell that story,
Yeah.
I would have never told it.
So that's wonderful. I know I just wanted you to go ahead and make sure that you shared that story just because I remember you mentioned that and that was just like mind blowing for me. So I know I'm not sure how we're doing for time, but one of the things that they always know is that before we have the people on, I say go ahead and give me a book or an article, something that you're passionate about, just to give the people a little
you were
insight.
shocked that I picked the domestic
I
violence
was.
one. You were like, what? What's
I was like, okay. So the article that he chose, just so we can go ahead and give a quick little teaser of it, it is about domestic violence, but it's about domestic violence with the males being the victim. So I want to go ahead and give a disclaimer and say that with us discussing this, or at least just touching on the summary of it, it is in no way, diminishing, the victims, the female victims at all. But it's something that's taboo and needs to be talked about. So just briefly, why did you choose that article and where can they find the article? We may go ahead and put a link as well for it.
I can't remember what article I gave you, but it's online.
Okay.
If you Google domestic violence, it'll talk about how 40% of the victims are men, and they don't talk about it. It's like, and it kind of does something to your masculinity. So the reason why I chose that article is because I'm a domestic violence survivor.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was hard for me to talk about that. And even when I was going through it and I seeked help, they look at me like,
oh yeah,
her?
Yeah.
She jumping on you? Yeah,
Yes.
right. She stabbed you? It's like this. If you see two people arguing, especially if you see a woman slap a man, the first thing you say is, what did he do? Where's she finding his phone? Who he cheating on? Who he cheating on? But if you see it the other way, it's like, ooh, what's going on? So no one believed me. No one believed me.
So that's what. And I just wanted to make sure because I wrote down a little bit of notes about the article. It was saying that 2 out of 5 domestic violence victims are men, and it's underreported. And I can see that that's the reason why it probably is underreported because they probably tell you to go ahead and go on somewhere.
Man
solve
up,
that on
you
man
good.
up, exactly.
You
so
good.
I can see why it wouldn't be on the record, but we'll go ahead and make sure that we put a link for that because I have the articles.
Okay.
Just like you said, if you go ahead and Google domestic violence with men, I'm sure it will come up.
Oh, a lot of stuff. You'd be surprised.
Yes, I'm pretty sure. So that's why I was just happy that you said it. That's why I made sure I put that disclaimer out there. Just because it's not diminishing the significance of female victims, but it's saying that male victims, that they exist too. And
I'm passionate about that because, okay, let me go back. What really compelled me to tell my story is when the Me Too movement came out because they were bashing men. Men are trash. You ain't stuff, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that's not true. I was raised by a single mom. And and that's all research. I have all the documentation. There's about 17 point whatever million single moms raising boys.
Okay.
That boy grows up either 3 ways because he's surrounded by his mom's atmosphere, her surroundings. He'll grow up either a misogynist, an abuser, or very passive.
Okay.
Don't you put your hands on a woman. That's how I grew up.
See, and that's why we just need people like you out there just being a voice for the community and showing your story because you have so many different so many different perspectives that you can take where you can relate to everyone, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So we're going to go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, I want to talk about another passion that you have, the Fitness Chronicles.
Yes.
So we're going to go ahead and get into that. So
Okay.
when we come back, make sure you join us. He will be here. So we'll be right back, you guys.
Thank you.